All right, great. So first of all, happy Friday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the webinar. And also, I would really like to take this time and give my appreciation to both Eric, Samuel, and also Hilya for being the speakers for today's webinar. So both of them are actually management consultants themselves. Eric is from Accenture and Hilya is from Strategy and PwC. So the purpose of our webinar today is really just to expose our participants to the career journey of becoming a management consultant, and also to get to understand, right? Like what is a day in life as a management consultant and how to get there. All right, so today we'll be getting insights from them. Okay, so first of all, maybe we can get Eric to introduce yourself first to everybody here.
Yeah, sure. Right. Thanks, Siteng. So yeah, before we get started, my name is Eric, as Siteng has introduced me before. My background, I actually studied a degree in logistics, and then I worked with DHL for a few years before actually pursuing an MBA. So after about 5 years in operations, I decided it was the right time to move over to consulting. So it kind of tied in with when I completed my MBA. So my background is actually from logistics. And what I'm currently doing with Accenture is also as part of the supply chain and operations practice. So in a sense, I've transferred my skills from my previous employment and my education into consulting. So yeah, it's a little bit about my background.
All right, thank you so much, Eric, on that. Yeah. So that's very interesting, right? Because you started off being from a logistics background, and now you're a management consultant. Yeah, great. How about you, Hilya? Maybe you can also introduce yourself and your career background.
Yep. Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. So my name is Hilya. So currently I am working with Strategy and PwC as an associate. So prior joining the strategy, and I was also working with the KPMG Management Consulting that is based in Jakarta, where in there, and up until now, actually, I am actually specializing in a strategy and operation, working for clients both in a private and public sector. And during my time up until now, I was working with various industries ranging from oil and gas to tourism sectors. So currently, I am still in a stage where I am in more generalized sector before I am choosing one of the top industries that I want to pursue.
All right, thank you very much, Hilya, for the introduction. So just a heads up for everybody here, you are allowed to also put in your questions into the chat box. However, if you're feeling shy, don't worry, you can also personal message the questions to me and I will bring it up at the end of the session, all right? So yeah, everyone is allowed to ask questions here. There's no dumb questions, just to put it out there, okay? Great, so I have a question, right? So for Eric first, what drew you into management consulting industry, given that you're coming from a logistics background? So what actually pulled you in to the management consulting industry?
Yeah, I think, okay, so for that, when I was with, when I was with DHL, my role there was actually pretty much projects that were tied in with the performance improvements. So when I looked at firms, I realized that firms were always the people studying or implementing the latest trends. And so that was like the motivating factor for me to choose, because I've always been excited and intrigued by these things. So I felt that was one of the best ways to be ahead of a new trend before it came in. So that was my motivating factor, actually. So yeah.
Okay, cool, interesting. So you like challenges. You like to be ahead.
Loosely put, yes.
All right, great. How about you, Hilya? What put you into management consulting industry?
Yeah, I think my experience is quite different with Eric, because Eric maybe come from like a different background before coming into management consulting. But for me, to be honest, after I graduated, I got a chance to have an internship at Boston Consulting Group during that time. And at that time, I was actually, I don't understand anything about management consulting. So I didn't know about the industry. Even I didn't know about BCG, to be honest. So it was just a lucky move. But then when I was in there, I feel that the job interests me, because I understand it is more on the personal kind of choice, because I understand that I am the type of people who like different types of things every day. So I think in consulting, that's what we do. I think every day is a different thing, and then you learn every different kind of industries every day. So from there, I think I believe that consulting is suitable, and I think I really like it. I really like it because of that experience. So then after that, I just moved to another consulting firm as well. So yeah, so up until now, I'm still in consulting. So yeah.
Okay, great. So will you see yourself being a consultant for a long run, Hilya?
Well, even Eric is laughing about it, but well, it depends actually, because there's an ups and downs, right? In consulting, I mean, in consulting, maybe it seems that you know every industries, and you try to understand at least every industries that you handle, but at the end of the day, you're not specializing in anything, right? But I'm saying that it is not a bad thing, but it's just it's just a choice, right?
Yeah. So it's like a jack of all trades kind of thing.
So it depends on like what you want at the end of the day. If you want to be like a specialist or you want to be a generalist. But I must say, to be honest, maybe the second point that I want to address is also back then I don't really know what I want. Which industries that I want to pursue. So I think that's one of the reason why I choose consulting as well. So I can try like a different industry before deciding which one that I want. So
yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah, okay, great. Sure. Okay, so another question is, what should one expect in a day-to-day life as a consultant? Eric laughed first, so why don't you go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna go with two keywords, right? The first one is chaos, and the second is change. So I think when you go into a client environment, you can't possibly know everything, and that's where the chaos comes from, right? You walk into an environment, you don't know the culture, you don't know the working systems, you don't know the organization. So when you need to figure that part out, then there's definitely a lot of chaos. And then once you cut through a little bit of that, you will reach to the place where change is required. So if you're able to survive the chaos and get to a point where you can implement change, I think these are the two things that you actually need to be prepared on a day-to-day basis. You will have work that stems from these two these two phenomena, basically chaos and change. Your work will stem from that. So preparing for just to make slides, just to have great Excels, that I don't think that helps. I think being prepared for these two things, then whatever work that flows from there, you will be able to adapt. So that's my 2 cents on what you need to be prepared. Yeah.
All right. So you really have to be quick to adapt to the changes every day. Okay.
Yeah.
How about Hilya? Do you echo this?
Yes, good. Definitely agree with what Eric said. But just want to add, it's a very dynamic situation, to be honest, in consulting. So you can never expect what a day-to-day is like. But if I can summarize, generally what we do is actually we talk to the client a lot. And then we try to address their problems. So usually that the clients has some objectives that they want to pursue. So, or some strategy that they want to see. And then usually what we do is actually, we do a lot of research. We do a lot of interviews with clients or the SMEs or external speakers as well. And then after that, after we got all those data, we actually create, we turn that data into slides, how to create those data into like a meaningful strategy for the client. So I think that's the basic, just the basic of what is like to be a consultant. But just in generally, like what Eric said, you can never expect. So adapting to change is one of the skills that I must say it's very important in consulting. So yeah, it's a very dynamic situation. But at the same time, maybe if you want to see it in a positive way, it's it gives your heart like moves every day as well.
So replaces all the sports and exercises. This pumps your heart faster. All right, cool. All right. Thank you so much, Ivan, for your questions. I will definitely bring those up during the Q&A session later. All right, thank you. Okay, so next, what do you think are the most or the common challenges being as a consultant, and how do you deal with them? Maybe Hilya, you can go first.
Hmm. Okay, I think this actually related to the previous question.
Mm.
For me, I think the most challenging part is actually, yeah, because the dynamic situation, you can never expect anything, right? So, for example, if usually we already planned, like, okay, for this week we want to do this, but we never know, like, probably in the mid of the day or yeah, mid of the day, maybe sometimes the client would like to ask for a different directions, and then maybe maybe like at first the client wants A, but suddenly they want to do A, B, C, D. Those kind of dynamic situation is actually a bit challenging to control. And yeah, I think that's the most challenge that I feel.
All
And
right.
how do I deal with that? Actually, I think managing my time very wisely is very important. So for example, like if my like seniors or managers already say that, okay, the objective for today is actually this, then I have to finish this task by the end of the day, exactly by the end of the day, because perhaps tomorrow there will be another task, or maybe the slide that I produced today won't be sufficient again or related again for tomorrow. So yeah, I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for that. How
Mm.
about you, Eric? I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure you share the same kind of challenge, or if
Yeah.
you have more to add, feel free.
Not,
But
yeah.
you can also share with us, like, how do you also manage this kind of challenges?
Yeah, I think so. In terms of the issue itself, yes, largely similar to Hilya's point. I think for me, the first challenge is dealing with ambiguity. You really just don't have all the info that you need. So honestly, you just have to be resourceful. Similar to the point earlier that Hilya brought up, you just have to have a lot of conversations with the client, the different SMAs, different SMEs, to get to that point where you are actually insightful to the client. Because I think that's what clients are looking for. These days there's so much of data, so much of information. They have all of that. They need insights, right? So it's what we deal with. You deal with the ambiguity, you get to a point where you can transform that data to useful insights. So the way I've always dealt with it is I've remained a very teachable person. So I learn from everyone in the organization and from my client side. So I think that gives me a way to deal with the ambiguity that I'm facing, because I accept that I don't probably know everything and the client probably knows better. So to help them, I'll help myself first. So that's how I've done it. That's the first. The second is sometimes when you go into an environment, there's just a lot of noise. And sometimes the noise in itself doesn't translate to the real issue at hand. So I think cutting through the noise and being able to find that line of sight is what's important. So for me, I've always focused on the problem statement. I go in, I understand what it is that the client wants first. And then, of course, you have all this noise. You put them all aside first, and then you just focus on this. So that's been my two key issues and the ways I've dealt with it. Up till now, I've been in the industry for about 3.5 to 4 years. So this is what's kind of helped me for now.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that very interesting advice. Okay, so I'm sure many participants that joined today are preparing themselves, for a career as a management consultant. So what tips can you give in order to advance themselves for such as, what tips would you give for their skills advancement and also preparing for case studies? Maybe Eric, you can go first.
Yeah, so I'll take the point on case studies first. I think this is predominantly an interview perspective, right? I think that's where they're coming from. I think honestly, it's just practice. If you're the hardworking kind, practice. There are books on these things that you can actually get from the bookshop. So buy them and practice. Alternatively, if you're someone who spends a lot of time reading, I think that helps your articulation of case studies, because these are all real world scenarios that are being translated into an interview. So I think if you're well read or you're going to prepare extensively for it, these are two things that will help. When I first joined the firm, I realized there's just so much of training that's available. And I used to ask myself, there's already no time to work. How are we going to find time to go for training? Right? But I realized that there's a benefit to that. And the underlying message here is that if there are short courses that you can take in line with the new trends that are coming up, I think that will set you apart when you go for an interview. Because yeah, the degree is great, the master's is great. I don't deny it. I have them myself, but I think if you go and get short courses done, it sets you apart a little bit. So that would be my take on this.
All right. I think you've mentioned something very interesting, which is taking up courses. Do you have any recommendations for what kind of courses to take?
Looking at where things are these days with analytics, I think that would be a place that, personally, that's of interest to me. So that's where I would start. but also if you are, somewhere a bit more along the sustainability line per se, right? That could be another place that people may want to take courses in. So it really depends on where you see yourself specializing. For me, that's my go-to, right? But it really does depend. Yeah.
I see. All right. How about you, Hilya? What is your take on this?
Totally agree with what Eric said. But just to add as well, maybe some people will say that case study is a very hard and tough interview process to do. But at the end of the day, agree, it's just all about practice, because in case study there's no right or wrong answers. It's just trying, I think the objective is just trying to understand your logic behind it. And I think it can be learned it can actually be learned from practicing. And maybe just to add as well, maybe some tips for an undergraduate students, perhaps be active. I think that's be active in terms of joining an organization or something that can actually make your CV stands out. Somehow I see that in consulting, they like people who are very active in university, or they are very keen to participate. So for example, like as simple as like in joining an organization or joining some receiving some awards, some sort like that. I think it will help you as well in terms of make your CV looks good compared to the others, I can say. And also apart from that, also I feel that those kind of things are actually equip you when you actually do the consulting works. So that's how I see it.
Okay, basically staying active in university with events or even taking up like leadership opportunities. Yeah.
If I can just add to Hilya's point, right? It goes back to being resourceful, because when you do all of these things in different organizations, you will naturally develop that. So I think that's the point she's actually trying to make. And that's what stands out in interviews. They see that as a more complete person than just a nice degree or a nice master's. So,
Okay, interesting. All right. So just another heads up for the participants. If you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat box, just like Ivan has did. Oh, Andy also. Okay, interesting. So yeah, and if you're feeling shy, don't worry. You can always PM me the questions via the Zoom chat. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so I guess this is the last questions I have. What is the biggest lesson that you have learned as a management consultant so far? Maybe Hilya, you can take the floor.
Well, this is a very nice question, actually. To be honest, there's a lot of things that I learned to be a consultant, in terms of like learning about different industries, communication, for example. Like usually in consulting, we face not only like another associates in another firm or another client, but we also talk to the BOD levels. So I think those kind of things, we learn how to communicate with different levels of people in the organization. I think those two things. And then we learn how to think strategically, because I think that's the recent learn that I get is actually, so in consulting, we never, I mean, to be honest, I barely go I have a project that maybe I've already done this for like 3 or 4 times. So dealing with the ambiguity, like what Eric just mentioned before, I think it's the things that I learned the most, how to deal with that, how to deal with, how to cope with sometimes stress as well. Because of course, at the end of the day, the client knows the industry better than us, but then they actually expect us to know as well, because they hire us to be the consultant. So dealing with that is actually also one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And perhaps the last one will be about writing in a more effective manner. I think maybe if someone already see there's a much difference between the writing skills of a consultant and just writing skills of consultant, they try to do it more effective and more efficient and more direct as well, and then creating those beautiful slides like what other people always said. So I think there's a lot of things that I actually learned in consulting. I think that's it from me. Maybe Eric.
Yeah.
You took all my answers.
Sorry.
No, no worries.
Yeah.
I think two things. Structure. I think when you go into an issue, if you don't have that structure, it's very difficult to get to a point of solution. I mean, so I think that's one thing I've learned in consulting, to be able to structure my thoughts, structure my delivery, structure even my analysis to a point where it's easily understood. I think that's definitely key. The second thing is because when you come into consulting, because I was an experienced hire, so this is from a slightly different tangent. There's a different expectation that comes, and I think dealing with failure was something I learned in the firm, because not every project is going to be smooth sailing. Not every project is going to be where you're flying and performing. I think so. Dealing with that and bouncing back quickly, that was something I learned most in the firm, because it changes so quickly. Everything just changes so quickly. So there's really no time for you to sit and kind of feel sorry for yourself. So I think yeah, that bouncing back, the ability to bounce back quickly is something I learned, and I do treasure that quite a fair bit. I think it's important, right, for us to be able to look at a failure, take the lesson, and quickly move on. So I think these are the two things I've learned. And the third one, perhaps, is if you're always curious, I think then this industry kind of suits you. If you can continuously stay curious, then I think that, and it has helped me, because maybe that's just a personality, but staying curious has helped me. So yeah, these three things. Yeah.
Sounds like you have to be very emotionally resilient.
I mean, we all have bad days. I'm pretty sure it happens.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for your answers. So I think we will begin with the Q&A session. So I see quite a number of questions already. Maybe we'll begin with Ivan first. All right. So he asked, is an MBA helpful, or is it necessary to pursue consulting? What factors do we need to take account of when choosing which MBA program or school to choose? Maybe Hilya, you can take this question.
Well, to be honest, I think Eric might be more suitable, because I think, Eric, you've done MBA before, right?
Oh, okay.
But to echoing what Ivan has asked is actually, yeah, I'm actually also looking for an MBA for consulting, MBA degree. I think I heard it is pretty not important, but it's pretty interesting to get. But maybe Eric, you can explain more.
Okay, for me, I took it because I was coming from the industry. I needed a gateway into consulting, and I found that an MBA would give me the business sense that I need to couple with what I have from operations. So for me, it was almost necessary. But I think if you take it, the benefits that I found is that you meet people who think very differently from you, and that helps. Now, of course, this was pre-COVID. So in a classroom environment, it stimulates your thinking, your conversation skills, and whatnot. So I think that element of it helps. So mandatory or not, I'm honestly agnostic. I think I needed it at that point because I was switching industries. But for someone who's trying to go straight from an analyst level or from a junior level in consulting, you probably can get in coming out with good grades from a reasonably reputable university. You probably get by. Which university? I've heard two schools of thought. Yes, if you come out from a very reputable university, it's better. I honestly think, for me, again, I'm agnostic, because if you interview well and you show a very good logical thought process in those interviews, yeah, you probably stand an equal amount of chance. So that's my 2 cents on it.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for your input, Eric.
Yeah.
Okay. So he has another question. Where can current undergrads learn more on the skills needed for consulting? Are there any MOOCs that you recommend? What else can undergrads, especially underclassmen, do to help with a future in consulting? Who would like to take this question?
I think Hilya can take this one.
Okay, all right. Hilya.
To be honest, I don't have any specific answer or like a specific skills or course for consulting. But then again, I'm just repeating what Eric just mentioned before. It's actually about practicing. There are a lot of websites, a lot of books and everything that you can actually get, and just try to practice from there. But just to add, maybe practicing with one of the consultant, it actually can help you, because practicing with other people can actually give you the feel of doing the real case studies. And maybe the other one would be, I heard there are, so for example, in my school, there are like a consulting club, something like that. So I think maybe you can join that club, and I bet there's a lot of resources and then a lot of case study practices with consultant that you can do. So,
Yeah, just to add on to that, I do listen to a lot of podcasts that are produced by a lot of the top firms. I think there's some from there's the McKinsey podcast, the Harvard Business Reviews. These are good resources that you can actually use to kind of keep up to date with what are the new trends. When you go into an interview, you're not starting from scratch. You're kind of aware of what material these guys are already putting out into the market for public consumption anyway. So I think that's one place that's what I would do. So, yeah.
And maybe just to add as well, maybe YouTube. I remember before joining the firm, I tried to search for like a consulting interview in YouTube. The reason being is just in case study, it's not just about like answering the question, but also your communication skills, your body language, and then perhaps just your written paper. They always like to try to see those kind of things. So somehow YouTube helps me a lot to get those kind of case interview vibes.
Okay, yeah, that's really that's a very helpful answer, especially for Peng Han's question. So he was asking what are some of your favorite learning resources for aspiring consultants. So I believe you have answered that. Unless you have more to share. It's all good. Okay, great. All right. So Ivan's third question, I believe we've really answered that before this for some of the biggest lessons, right? So I guess I'll skip that for now. So your last question is, what is the consultancy scene like in Malaysia or Southeast Asia? Is the demand for consulting services in this region increasing due to the potential of the Asian century? Eric, maybe you can take the floor.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think post-COVID, we've definitely seen that there's more demand because COVID showed that, especially like in supply chain, a lot of these, the older ways of working are no longer applicable. So when you need to transform an organization, then the need for consulting or the demand for consulting grows. So for me personally, I think there is a demand and there will always be a demand. I think there's always this question that less human touch is needed at work, right? With robotics and all of the technology advancements. But when a company needs to get there, they still need a sparring partner. And you tend to go to firms for that, just to bounce ideas, just to kind of validate if this is the right way forward. So I think for Malaysia, definitely, yes. And I believe it's the same for Southeast Asia. I think Hilya can adhere to the fact that Indonesia is probably the same.
Yeah, it's totally the same, especially with the COVID, after the COVID situation, everyone wants to go digital. Those kind of things is actually, they always ask consultant, what is it like in other countries, looking for another different point of view, and perhaps seeking for like recommendation if they want to go into this kind of strategy in the next 5 years. And even if the COVID is still there, what should they do? This kind of thing. So, yeah.
I think that's the benefit of a firm as well, because they're so global in nature, right? Your ideas are collated globally and then you can localize it. So it will always be in demand. Yeah, I think the style of work may change, what you do may change, but in essence, consulting will remain.
All right, thank you. So next question from Andy. He asked if there's any great tips to be recruited into a consulting firm. The reason why he's asking is because he's currently with operations background and he has also recently just completed an additional MBA cert too. So what are your advice for him? Maybe Eric?
Yeah, I think one thing that you should focus on is to accentuate the fact that you already have operational background. So bring that into consulting, because consulting is sometimes very generic. It's more on the generalist side of things. So having this is a good start, but you will need to be able to go from operational to looking at things from a more structural perspective. So operations will help you, but not being able to structure may be the initial challenge that you face. So if you're able to step out of the operational mindset and look at it from a more strategic perspective, that will be because that was my struggle. If I'm being completely honest, that was my struggle. In the first year when I walked in, I thought my operational experience will take me through, but it's not. You need to marry that with a lot of structural thinking, and I struggled for the first year, but that's my advice. Marry these two things: being structured in your thinking, and then use your operational knowledge to know whether where you're going is actually logical or not. So, yeah.
All right. Just a side question, right? Did a mentor help you with bridging that gap?
Yes. I think he was patient enough to help me to understand that it's going to take time to come out from a very operational mindset into this consulting mindset. So a lot of times I felt that, no, this is, operationally, this is how it should be done. But being a consultant, you're not going to be there forever to do it operationally. You got to set a structure that the company can take forward with them without you being there. So my mentor was patient enough to understand that, okay, I'm going to take time to get there. But he also pointed me in the right direction. A lot of things, your slides, how you think, how you structure your workshops, your meetings, your discussions, all of that. So a good mentor will help. Hopefully someone from the firm in itself, so he understands the culture of the client, he understands the culture of the firm. So yeah, that definitely is the case.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Okay, so someone who is rather shy, so she dropped me a DM. And her question is, could you share about the career progression or the path as a management consultant as you climb up the ladder? Maybe Hilya can take this question.
So is it in terms of like the leveling in the organization, or?
I believe so. I think her question is more of like, how do you progress your career being a management consultant? Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think at first, when especially for undergraduate or someone who actually just only got like below than 5 years experience, usually they put us as an associate. So there in that position, so there's a lot of level of associates actually, for example, in strategy and itself. So as an associate, they expect us to actually learn, and then they expect us to actually work alongside with another senior associates, for example, just to understand about the industries, and then how to just create slides and do the communication skills and the other things as well. But in terms of industries, we don't have any specialization. So I think from associate to senior associate, it's more on a more all industries, types of industries that we can get. But from my understanding, when you go into like upper level, so for example, like in terms of like managers and then partners, directors and then partners, you usually already got one specialized industries, one or two perhaps specialized industries that you want to pursue. Either it is in terms of industries or it is in terms of functions. So for example, like focusing just on supply chain, let's say, or other strategy type of projects. So I think that's from my understanding, that's what we usually do in a consulting.
Okay, so kind of gets me to segue to another question. So what is the highest demand in terms of specializing, the function? Like which function is the most high in demand, I guess? If that's the right question to ask, I hope.
I think everything is has their own demand actually.
Okay.
And but then it actually depends though. I think in consulting, we also have the chance to say what we want. So for example, I always tend to say to my mentor that I want to focus my area later in an oil and gas sector. So they always try to plot me in the oil and gas projects. But then because I am still an associate at this level, so at this stage, they always try to move me into the direction that I want, but at the same time they always put another exposure regarding other industries as well. So yeah, and maybe to answer your question, I think there's I'm not seeing there's a like the most favorite or least favorite kind of projects or industries or functions, but yeah, everything has their positive and negative things. So, yeah.
All right, so it really depends on which do you like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I mean they always give us the freedom to choose. Yeah. So
okay. All right. How about you, Eric? Do you echo this, or do you have other opinions? Sorry, Eric.
I actually echo it 100%. I think that's sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. No, I think to pick one industry that's going to be in demand, no, I think that's not. The other thing I would add to that is, since in consulting you get to explore different industries, you will build multiple skills that makes you useful across more than just one specialization or one function. So I would think it's more advantageous for someone to actually be versatile, rather than try and get pigeonholed. But to Hilya's point, I understand where she's coming from as well, that at some point as you go to be a bit more senior, you want to build one or two specializations that, you're known for. So for me, it's to remain as versatile, but have a couple that you're really strong at, so you can move on to become like a subject matter expert and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I have another person who anonymously asked me, when is the recruitment cycle open for consulting firms like Strategy and also Accenture? Both of you have to take this question, I suppose. Maybe Eric can go first.
Sorry, when is it open? I think
Oh, actually, we have a special announcement to make later, right? Okay,
yeah,
never
correct.
mind.
So I think for Accenture, they can take it later.
Yeah. So Hilya can go first.
Yeah.
I think for strategy, and they always open for recruitment, so there's no like a specific cycle or anything. So yeah, if someone interested in consulting, just feel free to drop your CV.
Yeah. If you're just letting you know for the participants, if you're ever interested to enter Accenture and Strategy N to become a management consultant, do book Eric and also Hilya's time, to get their advice on how should you prepare yourself to become a consultant at these both firms. Yeah. Okay. All right, so another question from Ryan, specifically directed to Hilya. Does Strategy N have any PTA or internship opportunities for students? If so, how is the application like?
Yes, they have. Totally, they have. I think for an application process, you can go directly to the website, the Strategy and PwC website, or I may also suggest that just hit one of the, so for example, if Ryan is in Malaysia, then hit just one of the Malaysian point of person who works in Strategy and just ask directly to them. I think that would be fine as well. I think, and it is more easier for you to apply rather than just going into the website and through the process.
Okay, so similar to a full-time internship opportunities are open all year round as well.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And another question from Ivan. So he asked, I understand that for most projects, especially the large scales ones, there would be multiple consultants working on a specific case. How much responsibility is delegated towards more junior analysts or consultants? And what is the delegation usually like? Eric, maybe you can take this question first.
Yeah, I think the more junior ones get the slide making, updating Excels, keeping the more administrative stuff.
Making coffee. Just kidding.
Okay, no. I think bosses get their own coffee these days.
Yeah.
So, no. But no, I think it's more of the groundwork. So your Excels, your slides, keeping your meetings structured properly. I think that driving discussions as you get a little bit more senior, that's what you'll be required to do. Drive outcomes, drive your discussions in a certain way to steer the client. But for the more junior level, it's most likely Excel slides. Anyway, those are key consulting skills that you need. So it's probably best to build it from the ground up anyway. So yeah, that's what I've seen. That's what I've also experienced. So yeah.
Hilya, is it the same at Strategy N?
Yep, that's the same as well. And maybe just to add, sometimes we also, not sometimes though, actually, most of the time we're also shadowing our managers or seniors. So for example, in the client meetings, we usually just be there, even though sometimes we don't do anything and just taking notes. But those kind of things is actually important. It gives us the exposure on not only how to communicate, but also how to control the client as well. Because like I mentioned before, sometimes the client has a random ideas during the meetings. And I think it's also types of skills that a consultant must have, how to like control the expectation of the clients. Because so I think those kind of things, just to add, shadowing our partner or director or even senior managers is one of the tasks that is very important that we do as well. So.
And I think honestly, it's skills best to adhere at a junior level. It's best to have it because when you go up, you'll be able to manage a team and manage the workload better because you understand it, right? So I think that I agree with Hilya's point. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So another question for both Eric and Hilya, right? So I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'll just call you MZM. So he or she has recently read an article from Harvard Business Review, and they were saying that management consulting has one of the highest turnover rate. Laughing already. So he would like to get your point of view on the cost for this. Yes, so Eric laughed the loudest, so maybe Eric go first.
But I was on mute.
You were heard.
What is the cost? I think personally for me, sometimes it's a cycle, right? People get to a place where, no, I've achieved everything I can, or I have done everything I can possibly do within the firm. So it's time for me to try something. Because I think I choose to see it this way. People pick up transferable skills that you can use in almost any organization thereafter and still be an asset. So I think that's why at some point you see a high turnover. People go like, okay, I've done 5 years, I've learned everything. Now it's time for me to try a more strategic role, either on the client side or with another firm. So to me, that's why I think the highest turnover is. I know there are unpopular opinions about why people leave the firm, but I'm going with this one. This is my point of view. I think it's a cycle. People come to the end of it, and it's just a natural, progression to something else. So, yeah.
Right. How about you, Hilya?
Yeah, totally agree with Eric. I think that's the nice way to say. Yeah, I think at a certain point, people, I think most of, for example, like my friends or my colleagues, when they decided to move from consulting to other industries, that they feel that it is enough, like the skills and everything is already enough, and they already know what they want to do, like pursuing other in the specific industries. So I think that's one of the reasons why people are actually leaving. And yeah, maybe that is why a consultant always open their recruitment all year long at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the person who asked this, I believe, I hope it's him. So his name is Muzamil, and he would like to unmute and also ask a question himself. So I guess, yes, Muzamil, please do.
Yeah. Wait, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Eric and Hilya. I'm Muzamil here. So just wondering, right, like just to add on, because based on the article, it was like more on the stress basis and like consulting firms not prioritizing like mental health and all that. So just wanted to know your take on that. Is that like based on that, or it's just people lose interest or they divert after a few years?
Yeah. Maybe Eric, you want to go first?
Oh, okay.
So I think firms are making a conscious effort to prioritize mental health, especially post-COVID. There's definitely been a very concerted effort to get to that. I think people do leave mainly because it's the end of a cycle within the organization. But as far as mental health, I think it's two parts, right? The firm can take all the responsibility and initiative and effort. It's also part of the individual to know when it's too much for yourself, to take a step back, to take the breathers that you need. So to me, I think it's two parts. I think most firms are trying. They have mental health programs. Referencing Accenture, we actually do have a counseling program for employees as well. So I'm pretty sure Strategy N has something similar. So I wouldn't put it down to that. I think if you take the effort to actually watch your own mental health, you can kind of prolong your career within the firm and not risk a burnout at that point. But if it's an end of a cycle, you feel like you've done everything you can, I feel it's natural people do eventually move on.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think given that the situation of being a consultant is a bit, it's a very dynamic situation, and sometimes you can actually get burnt out, and maybe you can get tired and everything. But to be honest, those kind of things can actually be controlled. I mean, people in the organization are very open. So, for example, if you say that, okay, maybe I can't take this anymore in terms of like the workload, and it's not possible to do it, for example, like overnight, and you can talk to your managers or other your managers or your team. Usually what they do, they are very understanding in terms of like the workload and everything. So usually what they do, they won't like recognize you as you're not capable of doing things, but it's the best thing to actually just communicate with them that if it's possible or not possible to do. Because I think sometimes most people doesn't want to say that it is not, they cannot handle their job, just because, for example, they are shy, or they are afraid that their managers see they are not capable or everything. So I think that's very important, just to communicate, because the managers or the directors can simply just talk to the client and say like, oh, this is not possible, perhaps we can deliver this in the next 2 or 3 days. So I think those kind of things is very important in consulting, because again, sometimes the client doesn't really, I'm not saying care, but they just don't know like the amount of workload. So sometimes they just throw some due date and everything. So
Yeah, understand.
Yeah.
So I believe like communication is the key here. Okay, sorry, Eric, you want to add on?
Yeah, and I just want to add very quickly, right? Just think of it this way also. I think most people don't want to speak up when they are completely tired or heading to that point, because it seems like a sign of weakness. You don't want to own up to it. Been guilty of it myself, right? But I'm becoming a bit more open towards actually saying, because ultimately what suffers is your quality of work. So if you're actually upfront with your bosses that my quality of work is going to dip because I'm tired, it's probably it's an easier conversation. They'll understand that you're actually trying to do what's best for the client, but you also need to ensure that you're in the best position to do it. So I think that helps. If you can have that sort of a conversation, I think it helps. And firms are open to a conversation like that. Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you so much for your question, Muzabil. I hope they have answered your question. So don't worry too much. Just as long as you communicate well with your upper management, you're good. Okay, great. All right. So another question from Ryan Chin. He asked if there's any suggestion on what kind of technical skills like SQL, etc., to learn to best prepare for a career in consulting. Sorry, maybe Hilya. Yeah.
In terms of technical skills, up until this day, I don't see any like I mean, if you have any some sort of like certification like CPA or CFA, I think that will be helpful as well. But if not, I must say that it's going to be okay as well, because at the end of the day, I think when you go into consulting, then you know what types of certification that you want to pursue. So I think that's from my perspectives.
Okay, how about you, Eric? You echo this?
Yeah, similar. I think sometimes, you can be prepared. That's if you already know your interest. But if you're going in with a view of learning on the job, then I think you can always start once you are in consulting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't sweat it too much.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So you can always learn it when you're already working.
Yeah. Unless you already perhaps know what you want to specialize in. So for example, like, I don't know, be CFA, then just go for it. But if not, you shouldn't be worried too much.
Okay, cool. All right, so another question from Jin. So he asked, are management consultants involved in executing the suggestions or recommendations made to the clients, or the work stops at giving the solutions only? And how long does it take usually from commencement to completion of a project? Perhaps Eric can take the floor.
Sure. All right. That really depends on your scope of work. Sometimes they need you in there just for diagnostic. If it's just diagnostic, then you probably hand it off and they have a different team to implement it and in-house team to implement it. If the scope of works is end-to-end from diagnostic right up to implementation, then you will be the one to figure out the issue, come up with the solution, and then actually implement it. So I've been involved in both. To be honest, they are both equally heavy. Coming up with a solution that you're not going to implement is also easily challenged by the client. And then if you are the one actually suggesting a solution, then you also have to be capable of implementing it. So to be honest, it really depends on what the client engages you for. The duration of that, it can usually diagnostics probably 2 months. And then if it's an implementation, it could go up to 6 months or a year or a little longer. All of this really depends on the scope that you're engaged for. I don't think there's a fixed period,
Mhm.
but diagnostics typically 6 to 8 weeks. I have not heard of anything that's a lot longer than that. So yeah, that's my take. I think Hilya.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree actually with Eric. I don't have any more comments, but
Yes.
yeah, it's true actually, in terms of suggestion or recommendation, I think it depends on the scope of the project as well. So if it's like an implementation, yes, we have to give some recommendation and we have to try to implement by ourselves. So if the recommendation goes wrong or anything, then we are the one who is going to fix it as well. But in terms of like, for example, like I deal a lot with like a strategy project. So sometimes they ask for a recommendation. And yes, sometimes the consultant give a recommendation, but there's a lot of caveat or disclaimers. So for example, if we put this kind of, we give them this kind of suggestion, these are the disclaimer and caveat. So that's about it. And how long does it take? Yes, totally agree with Eric, like up to 6 months. But actually, interestingly, I have a 1 year implementation project before, but it's a very, very big implementation for SOE bank. So the whole bank would like to transform. So usually it takes up to 1 month, but there's another project. So for example, like a strategy project, usually it takes like 2 months only. So at the end of the day, it depends on the project.
Yeah.
All right. So here's another question, which I think is best directed to you, Hilya, since you have experience in both BCG and KPMG. So his question is, what's the difference of management consulting in Big Four accounting firms versus in management consulting firms?
If it's so in Big Four accounting firms, they have the advisory division, right? The advisory division is actually handling in there's a management consulting itself, for example, like in Indonesia. To be honest, the difference would be there's what I feel when my experience, for example, in BCG or even in KPMG or even now in Strategy N, there's not much different about it, to be honest. The only difference is actually the brand. One is actually Big Four and the other is actually the MBB, those kind of things. But if I can say, maybe the huge difference is usually the MBB always try to do the type of project that is more high level strategy, whereas in terms of Big Four, they try to do it both strategy and operations. So in terms of implementation, usually the client, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong too, Eric, but in terms of like implementation project, they usually go to another, not the MBB side, because they can to be very expensive, to be honest. So usually maybe a project like a business plan, usually they go to the MBB, but then in terms of operations, supply chain and other things, they tend to do to the Big Four, but not that the Big Four cannot do the high level strategy project as well. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes it also depends on existing relationships. So if you've already got good relationships, the MBBs, you're right, they generally only take on strat work. But sometimes I've seen EY do strat work as well, because they've got existing relationship with a certain client. The client trusts the bosses. So it does vary, honestly. I don't think there's a fixed answer for this one.
Yep. And to be honest, I see that at the end of the day, consulting is a more like a business, it's a people business kind of thing. So relationship of, for example, your partner to the clients is very important as well. So,
agree.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So actually he has a question directed to Eric. Directed to Eric personally. So I guess I will direct the third question to Hilya again. So is it true that a person will need to start off as an associate/analyst, especially in Big Three management consulting firms, even with certain years of experience? For example, experience in risk advisory in an audit firm.
Maybe Eric, if I can add as well. I think this is just like a based on experience as well, though, and actually based on what I see in the market and from my understanding, like my friends and everything. I must say yes, there is an adjustment for it. So, for example, to be honest, one of my director in KPMG just moved to BCG, and there's an adjustment of role and level. It's just because usually, for example, like a director in BCG, they need like a certain years of experience compared in KPMG. So I think I must say, yeah, in a short answer, there will be, but it actually also it depends on your years of experience and CVs. So,
yeah. And I also think it's your clientele at that level when it's so high up, right? It depends what's the clients that you're bringing across, because it like Hilya mentioned, it's a people business, right? Relationships matter. So if by hiring you they get your clientele, you may have a bit more bargaining power, but generally there's a slight you will have to calibrate adjustment, and it's usually a little, your salary may not be impacted, but the levels will definitely be adjusted downward. So
yes, totally agree.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the last question, which is for Eric, as a management consultant in Accenture, does your work involve a lot of IET consultancy work?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. So yes, at some point, because Accenture is billed as a technology consultant, SAP is their bread and butter, their wheelhouse. So yes, at some it will involve, even though I'm more on the business consulting side, at some point there's technological stuff that gets intertwined. So yes, you have to learn it on the go. Even if you don't know the details of it, you have to know enough of how a system works and how it affects your project, how it affects the client. So it's one of Accenture's strong points, and it will remain so. So coming in, it's something you just have to learn on the go. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. Wow, we have managed to answer all the questions that the participants have given. So that's really amazing. Yeah, but before we end the session, I have a very special announcement to make. So, just now that one of the participants was asking, right, if the recruitment cycle is always open, and the answer is yes. So at the moment, essentially is looking for consultants as well. Open to fresh grads, right? I believe.
Yeah.
So they are definitely hiring right now, and actually the Accenture recruitment team is in the session. So she'll be dropping down her contact details into the chat box. So be sure to note it down, and email her your resume and let her know that you're interested to join Accenture as a consultant. Yeah. So I believe she'll be putting her contact details in a moment. If she's here, right?
I'm here, yeah.
Yes.
I'm just trying to put it in right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, just give her a minute.
I was trying to put in the links to the job posting that we have as well. I think it's easier for everyone to see because you can just get into the job post directly, because we are hiring as you shared earlier, and the speaker said we are hiring across all all functions, from analyst, consultant, manager, senior managers, and it goes across supply chain, finance, HR, utilities, banking, capital markets. I tried to put it on the chats, but I think we have limitations in terms of the words that we can put in. So I just shared you my the link to my profile. So if you are interested, definitely just drop me a message, then we can definitely discuss. And we are hiring heavily right now. Please come and join us in Accenture.
All right. Thank you so much, Fatin. Perhaps you can also email me the details that so that I can forward them to the participants as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Okay, that'll be great, right? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Fatin.
Okay,
so I believe that's a good news for all the participants here, and right. So, sorry. So let us take a group photo before I conclude the session. Yeah. So I would like to welcome everybody to turn on your camera. Don't be shy. I mean, we've been showing you our faces for the entire hour, so you shouldn't be shy as well. Okay. I'll give you 5 seconds to turn on your camera, and I'll begin to take the photo. Is that it? All right, no worries. So, okay, we have one more. Okay, great. Nice. Okay, so, oh, there's more. Okay, I'll just hold on for a bit. Okay, so I guess that's it. All right, so look at the camera, everybody, and smile. Okay, one more. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Nice, I got a picture. Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining this the webinar today. And just to put it out there, Hilya and Eric are actually FutureLab mentors. So if you would like to know more about, a career in management consultant or even how to join their consulting firms, please do book their time. They'll definitely attend to you and help you throughout your career journey. All right. Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much to Hilya and Eric for taking your time for this session.
Thank you.
Looking forward
Welcome.
to, thank you. So looking forward to see you all soon. All right.
All
Take
right.
care, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Stay
everyone.
safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.